In history class, we learned that the Industrial Revolution changed the way people worked and lived. It introduced new machinery, improved transportation, and led to the growth of cities. It was a pivotal moment in shaping the modern world.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button.
Then came the preseason reports, and that's when things got loud. Mary Kay wrote that Shedeur still looked uncomfortable under pressure and questioned whether he could handle the speed of NFL defenses. Talk shows ran with it, fans debated it, and just like that, a narrative was born. Shedeur wasn't ready. Behind the scenes, though, the story looked different. Teammates spoke about his work ethic, saying he was often the last one off the field. Coaches quietly praised his progress, noting how quickly he picked up reads and adjusted to complex coverage looks. But those details didn't make it into the headlines, not yet. Meanwhile, Dylan Gabriel was being treated like the safe choice, the system guy who wouldn't rock the boat. Media outlets pushed the idea that he was the logical starter, while Shedeur was the project. It was a comfortable narrative for everyone, until Shedeur started lighting up the practice field. Word began leaking out about his deep ball accuracy, his command in the huddle, and how veterans were starting to rally behind him. But instead of adjusting, the local coverage doubled down, calling it overhyped and inconsistent. That's how it started, with a young quarterback trying to prove himself, a fan base eager for something new, and a media machine clinging to an old story that was about to collapse. Because what came next would flip Cleveland's entire football conversation upside down. To understand why the media suddenly flipped on Shedeur Sanders, you have to look at what was happening inside the Browns' locker room, because this wasn't about one reporter changing her mind. It was about a franchise quietly spiraling behind the scenes. From the outside, it looked like Cleveland had a plan. Dylan Gabriel was supposed to be the stable option, the bridge quarterback who could hold things together while the offense adjusted. But by midseason, that plan had fallen apart. Gabriel's decision-making slowed, his confidence wavered, and the locker room started to split, half the players believing in Shedeur's raw talent, the other half clinging to what they knew. The tension got so bad that even position coaches started choosing sides. Players were whispering about double standards, how Gabriel's mistakes were brushed off as growing pains, while Shedeur's were treated like red flags. It wasn't just about football anymore. It was about control, politics, and fear of being wrong. And when the losses piled up, the media, led by Mary Kay and others, felt that shift too. The old narrative wasn't selling anymore. Fans weren't blaming Shedeur for being unready. They were blaming the organization for holding him back. The moment the fan base turned, so did the coverage. Suddenly, the same reporters who'd questioned Shedeur's leadership were praising his composure under pressure and his potential to change the culture. Behind the scenes, team insiders say it was chaos. Gabriel and Shedeur reportedly stopped talking outside of team meetings. Coaches grew frustrated trying to manage two completely different personalities and two competing expectations. And through it all, the front office said nothing. Hopping the media storm would pass before anyone noticed how disorganized the entire operation had become. So when Mary Kay reversed her take, it wasn't out of sudden enlightenment. It was survival. The media could see which way the wind was blowing, and they knew staying on the wrong side of the story would make them look out of touch. Because in Cleveland, quarterback drama isn't new. But this time, the public wasn't buying the same excuses. The chaos forced the truth to surface, and Shedeur Sanders was no longer the problem. He was the only thing holding it all together. Now here, where things start to get uncomfortable, because this wasn't just about football ability. Beneath the surface, there was a different kind of bias shaping how people talked about Shedeur Sanders. From the very beginning, Shedeur wasn't judged like most rookies. His last name carried weight, and not in a good way. Being Dylan Sanders' son came with expectations that were impossible to meet. Reporters painted him as entitled, too polished, or more brand than ball player. It didn't matter that he studied film obsessively or spent hours perfecting timing routes. The narrative was already set. To the local media, he wasn't the underdog, he was the outsider. And here's the kicker. That perception wasn't based on his play. It was built on who people thought he was. Shedeur's confidence was labeled as arrogance. His composure under pressure was mistaken for indifference. Even when teammates praised his leadership, critics framed it as media-trained behavior instead of genuine maturity. That double standard showed up everywhere in press conferences, post-game write-ups, even sideline camera angles. Gabriel could throw a bad pick and be described as working through rookie mistakes. Shedeur? Trying too hard to prove himself. It was subtle, but it was constant, and fans started to catch on. Social media threads began comparing coverage, showing how the tone changed depending on who made the same play. When Gabriel scrambled for 5 yards, it was gritty. When Shedeur did it, it was reckless. These weren't isolated comments. They reflected a mindset deeply rooted in the league's old-school culture. And for Kay Cabot, that bias worked perfectly until it didn't. When Shedeur started proving everyone wrong, the narrative she'd helped build began to crumble. The media couldn't justify their tone anymore, so instead of admitting it, they flipped it. Overnight, Shedeur went from not ready to the future. But here's the truth. This wasn't a genuine change of heart. It was a strategic pivot, one designed to keep the media's credibility intact while rewriting history in real time. Because once fans saw through the bias, every headline, every updated take, looked like an attempt to cover up what had been obvious all along. The problem was never Shedeur's attitude. It was the lens through which people chose to see him. When the flip-flop finally went public, Browns fans didn't let it slide, not even for a second. Within hours of Kay Cabot's sudden Shedeur praise, social media lit up with screenshots, clips, and old headlines. The fanbase had receipts, and they used them like ammunition. Tweets from just weeks earlier resurfaced, quotes where she called Shedeur unfocused, too Hollywood, and unfit for the Browns' culture. Fans started stitching those clips next to her latest praise, where she called him a natural leader and the most poised rookie we've seen in years. The contrast was brutal, and it spread fast. YouTube creators, fan podcasts, and even national commentators jumped in. One viral post read, "Funny how Shedeur didn't change, the narrative did." Another simply said, "We remember." It became a movement. Fans holding the media accountable in a way Cleveland hadn't seen before. Kay tried to clarify, saying her view evolved as Shedeur developed, but no one bought it. People pointed out that he hadn't played a single regular season snap between her negative takes and her sudden praise. The only thing that changed was public opinion, and the fans knew it. Reddit threads broke down every contradiction, with users compiling timelines showing how the tone of coverage shifted in lockstep with the fanbase's frustration toward Gabriel. It wasn't about analysis anymore, it was about exposure. Fans were done being told what to think. Even local radio hosts began questioning whether the media had been too quick to judge, too comfortable tearing down a young player before he had the chance to prove himself. The backlash got so intense that other journalists started quietly deleting old tweets about Shedeur, as if the internet wouldn't notice. And while all of this was unfolding, Shedeur stayed silent. No interviews, no posts, no reactions. That silence spoke volumes, because while the media scrambled to rewrite their takes, he didn't have to say a word. His performances, his poise, his presence, they did all the talking for him. By the time fans finished dragging the receipts into the spotlight, the damage was done. The Cleveland media's credibility had taken a massive hit, and for once, the fans were the ones writing the story. While the media was busy spinning headlines, the real story was unfolding behind closed doors, inside the Browns' locker room. That's where the tension hit its peak, and it wasn't just about football anymore. Players could feel the divide growing every single day. At first, things were professional. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders kept things respectful, trading reps, studying film side by side. But once the chatter outside started, the leaks, the tweets, the constant media noise, the atmosphere changed. Coaches tried to keep the peace, but the energy in the room told the truth. There were two camps forming. If you're enjoying this video and loving the content, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up. It really helps us know what you want to see more of. And why keep all the excitement to yourself? Share this video with your friends, family, or anyone who loves NFL drama. Veteran players, especially on offense, started gravitating toward Shedeur. They liked his command, his energy, and how he didn't flinch under pressure. They saw the same thing fans were seeing, a quarterback who might be young but believed he could win. Meanwhile, Gabriel's supporters pointed to his experience and system knowledge, arguing that Shedeur's time would come later. The split became so visible that some position groups stopped blending during team drills. The coaching staff could feel it, too. There were whispers that even some assistants were quietly lobbying for Shedeur to take more reps, while others wanted to protect Gabriel's confidence. Meetings grew tense. Every practice rep felt like a political statement. And when Mary Kay's sudden pro-Shedeur coverage dropped, it only made things worse, because players realized the media was reflecting what was already happening internally. According to team insiders, some veterans even confronted coaches, asking why Shedeur wasn't getting a fair shot. They'd seen his preparation, his poise, and how easily the offense clicked when he ran the huddle. The locker room was no longer just competing, it was choosing sides. Through it all, Shedeur stayed composed. He didn't feed the drama, didn't clap back at the critics, and didn't talk to the press. Instead, he kept showing up early, focused, unbothered. And that attitude started changing things. Players who were skeptical began to respect him. By the end of that week, one thing was clear. Shedeur had won over the locker room not through words, but through consistency. And that was something no media narrative could rewrite. Now that the locker room had shifted, there was no turning back. A change was coming, and everyone inside the building could feel it. The tension between what the coaches were saying publicly and what was happening privately had reached its breaking point. Dylan Gabriel was still being called the starter, but nobody really believed that title meant much anymore. Behind the scenes, sources say the Browns' offensive staff had already started redesigning parts of the playbook, subtle tweaks that fit Shedeur Sanders' style. Faster tempo, more rollouts, deeper reads. The kind of offense that demanded creativity and confidence, two things Shedeur had in abundance. Players started noticing it, too. Receivers were running new timing routes that only made sense with Shedeur's arm strength and rhythm. It was as if the team was preparing for a quiet, inevitable transition. Meanwhile, Gabriel's body language said everything. He was frustrated, snapping at teammates, second-guessing calls, and showing the wear of the growing noise around him. Every mistake drew louder whispers. Every incomplete pass looked like confirmation. The locker room had already picked a side, and the coaches knew it. The breaking point came during a midweek scrimmage that wasn't even supposed to be competitive. Gabriel opened with back-to-back turnovers, and the crowd, made up of players, staff, and local media, fell silent. Then Shedeur stepped in, and within minutes the energy flipped. He hit 2 perfect deep throws, called his own audibles, and ran the offense like it was already his. When the scrimmage ended, even the defensive players were clapping. After that, the tone in team meetings changed. Coaches stopped talking about development. They started talking about timing and momentum. You could sense it. The switch wasn't just possible, it was imminent. The media, sensing the winds shifting again, began preparing their next wave of insider reports about a potential quarterback change. And through it all, Shedeur didn't say a word. No social media post, no interviews, just quiet focus. Because he knew, once he got that starting nod, everything would change. The switch wasn't official yet, but the writing was on the wall. The Browns' future wasn't in question anymore. It was standing right there, wearing number 2, waiting for the moment that everyone, even his critics, now knew was coming. When the switch finally happened, it didn't come with fireworks or breaking news alerts, just a quiet announcement that Shedeur Sanders would get the start in Sunday's game. But inside Cleveland, that simple decision felt seismic. After months of noise, criticism, and doubt, Shedeur finally had the chance to let his game do the talking. From the first snap, it was different. The offense moved smoother, faster, sharper. He wasn't playing scared, he was playing free. Quick reads, calm footwork, precision throws, it looked effortless. By halftime, the crowd that once questioned his place in the league was chanting his name. Even the commentators, the same ones who used to mock his composure, were praising his poise under pressure. And when he led a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter, a cold, surgical series of throws that carved through the defense, the entire narrative flipped in real time. The same reporters who once called him unprepared were now tweeting about his NFL-ready mindset. Kay Cabot even wrote that Shedeur commanded the field like a veteran, as if her earlier takes had vanished from history. But the real redemption wasn't about proving the media wrong, it was about showing the locker room who he really was. Teammates who'd been cautious around him were now slapping him on the helmet, telling him, "We got you, man." Coaches who once hesitated to take the leap were now all in. And Shedeur, he didn't gloat, he didn't point fingers. He just smiled, walked off the field and said, "We're just getting started." That win wasn't just a game, it was a statement. It marked the moment when the perception finally caught up to the reality. The flashy kid everyone underestimated had turned into the leader Cleveland needed. Fans flooded social media with clips, calling it the birth of a new era. Analysts who doubted him were suddenly reminded of his pedigree. And through it all, Shedeur stayed grounded, knowing this wasn't about revenge. It was about rewriting his own story, one throw at a time. Because redemption doesn't come when people believe in you, it comes when you stop needing them to. And that's exactly what Shedeur Sanders just did. What happened in Cleveland wasn't just a quarterback controversy, it was a reflection of something much bigger. The story of Shedeur Sanders exposed more than media bias or locker room politics. It revealed how quickly narratives can shape, and sometimes distort, the truth in modern sports. For years, the NFL has been a place where perception often matters more than performance. A player's personality, background, or last name can define how people see him long before he ever takes a snap. And in Shedeur's case, that perception became his biggest opponent. Every move he made was filtered through the lens of expectation. Day and sun, the social media QB, the flashy rookie. The media built a storyline before he even had a chance to write his own. But what Cleveland just witnessed flipped that entire script. Fans didn't just see a young quarterback prove he could play. They saw the power of truth breaking through spin. The receipts, the backlash, the shift in tone, it all reminded people that authenticity still wins in the end. When someone keeps showing up, working hard, and staying silent while the noise grows louder, the truth eventually speaks for itself. This saga also revealed something deeper about today's fan culture. The internet has changed everything. Fans aren't passive consumers anymore, they're investigators, archivists, storytellers. When the media tried to rewrite the narrative, the fans fought back with facts, clips, and timestamps. That dynamic, fans holding the media accountable, might just redefine how sports stories are told from now on. And at the center of it all was Shedeur Sanders, unknowingly leading a cultural shift. His journey became more than a rookie story. It became a mirror for how athletes are judged, labeled, and redefined in real time. The bigger picture is this: you can't control what people say about you, but you can control what they see when it's your turn to step on the field. And when Shedeur finally got that chance, he didn't just change opinions. He changed the conversation. Because sometimes, the most powerful statement isn't shouted, it's played. And in Cleveland, Shedeur Sanders just reminded everyone what happens when the truth finally gets the ball. At this point, it's bigger than football. What started as a Cleveland controversy, a reporter's flip-flop, a locker room under fire, a young quarterback fighting for respect, has turned into a statement about how narratives are built, broken, and rebuilt in real time. Shedeur Sanders didn't just survive the noise, he exposed it. He showed what happens when hard work meets patience, when talent outlasts politics, and when truth eventually drowns out bias. Now the question isn't whether Shedeur can play. We've seen the throws, the poise, the leadership. The question is whether the people covering this game are ready to evolve, to tell stories based on what's real instead of what fits the script. This entire saga should force every analyst, insider, and fan to look in the mirror and ask, are we giving young athletes a fair shot? Because this isn't just about one quarterback. It's about how easily we let narratives shape perception, and how quickly we jump on or off a bandwagon depending on clicks, likes, and trends. The same fans who were told Shedeur, didn't belong, are now watching him become the only thing keeping Cleveland's season alive. The same media voices who once dismissed him are now scrambling to rewrite their headlines. So here's the call to action. Hold people accountable. Don't just take what you hear from the insiders as gospel. Do your own research. Watch the tape. See who's really putting in the work. When someone changes their tune overnight, ask why. Because the future of sports storytelling belongs to those who care about the truth, not the narrative. And to the fans, the ones who kept the receipts, who defended Shedeur when it wasn't popular, who refused to let the story be rewritten, keep that same energy. You proved that the truth wins when people refuse to stay quiet. As for Shedeur Sanders, his story isn't over. It's just beginning. The next chapter will be written on the field, in every throw, every drive, every win that silences another critic. So if you've been riding with him from day one, now's the time to stand up and say it loud. They can twist the words, but they can't stop the work. Because the real comeback story is Cleveland's. It's Shedeur Sanders rewriting the game itself.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.